It has been said that the meek shall inherit the earth. In our society today, meekness is often seen as a sign of weakness and submission, while to others the meaning is more of a symbolic description of those who are left to live a life that they have forged for themselves with their own hands and free of the bonds of societal and social standards. It is this segment of society that are truly today's revolutionaries, unwavering in their commitment to their values. To them, meekness is anything but passive or weak. Our society's come a long way in the last 300 years. We've gained our independence and fought many wars to defend it. We've seen amazing advancements of technology, from the light bulb and the telephone to the typewriter and the camera. Just since the beginning of the 20th century, we saw advances that gave the world automobiles, airplanes, televisions, computers, and smartphones. Today, we have Netflix, Twitter, and TikTok, and an endless supply of apps, games, and gadgets aimed at entertaining us and organizing our busy lives. And of course, we cannot forget about Facebook to issue us our opinion and keep us up to date on what we should be thinking. Even the poorest among us are rich with blessings in this country, and yet so often we take those blessings for granted, demanding more and more in a sense of entitlement while basking away safely and securely in this big, beautiful, white picket fenced yard we call America. And you know what? There is nothing at all wrong with advancing our capabilities, but unfortunately, it has come at a significant cost that has gone unnoticed for decades. As urbanization took hold, technology afforded us easier and more efficient ways to utilize our time in the course of our daily lives. We could get there faster, we could communicate better, we were better equipped and more entertained. And somehow along the way, we grew further and further away from the land from which our ancestors forged their way, and without any of the technologies that we have seen evolve in just the last century. The decline in the more traditional means of subsistence and the loss of the close relationship we once shared with the land is an immediate threat to our future. It is extremely important that we do everything we can to begin the process of reconnecting with the land and rediscovering the intrinsic survival skills of our ancestors, because we, as a society, do not know how to do it anymore. Our program is based on two completely situation-driven trains of thought: endure and survive, adapt and thrive. There is but one key factor that separates the two: preparedness. Phase 1, endure and survive, consists of tasks that we may have to accomplish when faced with a survival situation without the benefit of preparation, and is focused primarily on the most basic of needs. You might find yourself in an immediate survival situation of which the average person is not prepared. You might be exploring, hiking, or heading out for a picnic in the woods, and suddenly you become misoriented. Your cell phone, if you have one, will either be dead or near dead, or you won't have a signal. You might get separated from the group, from your friends, or from your family. You might be in an accident in a car, a bus, or a plane. Or you might be driving through the countryside admiring the beautiful landscape and make a wrong turn, break down, and try to find your own way out. You might think you know where you are, or you just might be making the problem worse, traveling in circles or getting further and further away from anywhere safe. Any of these scenarios can put you in a life or death situation in the wilderness, alone in extreme conditions, totally unprepared. It's going to be wet and cold, or it might be extremely hot. You're probably not going to have any food or water, and you won't likely have a change of clothes. No jacket, no pillow or blanket, and no sleeping bag. And unless you're a smoker, it's not likely that you're going to have a lighter or matches or anything to make a fire. There will be bugs and unfamiliar noises all around you as nightfall descends. You're going to be alone and afraid and with no idea what to do. You have 4 very basic and highly essential needs in an immediate survival situation: shelter, water, fire, and food. These are the foundational blocks where our program begins. With this foundation, we will attempt to arm you with basic knowledge that will empower you to face your situation with confidence. Further, we will expand this foundation considerably and provide additional skills training intended to set favorable conditions for you to successfully endure and survive. Phase 2, Adapt and Thrive, is essentially a blueprint for long-term survivability and sustainability. In this phase, the focus is specifically on preparedness, advancing the skills, building the knowledge, crafting the tools, improving the shelter, protecting and defending yourself, your family, and your home, consistently producing the foods that you will need to survive, and doing it in a sustainable way with limited resources so that you are better prepared to adapt and thrive. Our mission as an education and training organization is to provide programs of instruction focused on reviving the innate human nature and qualities of our ancestors and enabling the intrinsic skills required to survive and thrive in scenarios ranging from immediate survival situations to long-term subsistence lifestyles. We will do this with a professional team of experienced and educated SMEs, instructors, advisors, mentors, and developers who will deliver clear and comprehensive information using a modular training approach. That basically means that though we do group courses into curriculum to satisfy the requirements for certain certifications, many of the courses in our program can be selected individually, assuming the selected course has no prerequisite requirements. We will employ a combination of interactive virtual and resident hands-on performance-based training concepts. So what is the problem that we see that brings us to this point? What is the driving insight that motivates us to create the Zodiac concept? It is clear that the average person is not prepared for an immediate survival situation, nor is the average American family prepared or equipped for scenarios that would require long-term subsistence skills. Survival is a very ambiguous word. It has a very different definition today than it did 100 or 200 years ago. Today it means making it through the work week and to the weekend, or getting through the day without losing a signal, or getting through the next hour without a cigarette or a cup of coffee. Of all the gifts we've been given and the things that have made our lives better and easier, it is the innate connection and fundamental understanding of the land and its gifts that we have forfeited. Where are your children today, right now, and what are they doing? There's a high probability that much of their day is spent indoors, behind a computer, or on a television playing games or binge watching addictive content on the latest drug of choice for kids, YouTube. It is likely that every time you look at your child, they're doing something on their phone, TikTok, Instagram, or maybe Facebook. And you could argue that we live in an information age of mass media that positively touches every aspect of our lives. But it comes at a cost that we've become oblivious to. Before the internet changed the world for the better, our world was a better place. Our children would go outside to play. They would run and jump, play football and baseball, explore, and even collect bugs. They'd get filthy and sweaty and smelly and track dirt in the house. In those days, kids had to find better ways to entertain themselves, and in most cases, it was done outside. It was just natural for every generation up to that point, and there's so much to be gained, so much to be learned by our kids getting their hands in the dirt and connecting with the land. We still see it today, but in small doses, and it's just a product of the evolution of our society as a result of the advancements we've had in technology in recent decades. And we've allowed it to happen, and we'll have to deal with the consequences, especially if we're ever faced with a real crisis where technology is useless. Think about the many crisis scenarios throughout the world that we see on our televisions: drought, famine, earthquake, hurricanes, tsunamis, pandemics, and war. As a society, we feel insulated from most of this because we have such a precious gift here in our country, but rest assured we're not immune from crisis that could set all or a portion of our developed society back 100 years or more. And what of our kids then? How will we have prepared them to endure and survive, adapt, and thrive? This is a very serious concern and one that we must address, but it only partially defines the problem. We hear all the time that the world is in crisis and that we need to prepare, but to say that the world is in crisis does not really define the problem either. The world is and has always been in crisis. Of course, our perception and interpretation of the level of crisis and on which front it exists from day to day or year to year is constantly influenced by many players: politicians, mainstream media, social media, foreign governments, corporations, and even Hollywood. But rest assured that with or without all of those players to manipulate the facts or intensify the drama, crisis is continuous and therefore not a complete picture as to why it's important to learn to survive off the land. The great advancements of technology over the last century and their impact to our society is an example of an ambivalent crisis of sorts that has come in under the radar to all but a few, which has led to an increase in the number of Americans who consider themselves preppers, survivalists, or subsistence farmers. As a society, we're more advanced intellectually and technologically now than ever before, and these advancements have afforded mankind opportunities that have made the lives of ordinary people better, faster, more safe and secure, and inextricably linked to fun and entertainment. But in a time when we differ so much on identity, beliefs, and values, there is a fundamental common heritage that we all share, and yet through our own ignorance and arrogance refuse to acknowledge. It is its most basic nature that makes it common, not in the sense of ethnicity, nationality, culture, or religion, but in our ancestral connection with the land. We are all descended from people who endured great hardships, survived devastating circumstances, adapted to the worst of conditions, and managed to thrive. The skills that they developed out of necessity and determination to survive are the same skills that are lost on the whole of society today. The more we advance technologically, the more vulnerable we become. The more we invest in the technologies of our future, the less we encourage and cultivate the skills of our past. There must be a balance, and we are charged with a responsibility to maintain it. In late 2019, an outbreak of the COVID-19 virus rapidly evolved into a worldwide pandemic, indiscriminately infecting millions of people, creating panic and literally shutting down all but the most essential of operations. Relief measures intended to provide for families and businesses affected by the shutdowns and the stalled economy added more burden to our nation's recovery from what was the greatest economic downturn since the Great Depression. In the wake of these measures, the demand for labor exceeds the supply of willing and able, which impacts manufacturing production rates, availability of raw materials, and ultimately the global supply chain comes to a crawl. Labor costs are up, while labor quality is down, and the global fuel crisis that followed the Russian invasion of Ukraine has added insult to injury. Fuel touches everything we have and everything we do. A stagnant economy and high inflation have created concerns of an economic crisis of which we've not seen since the 1970s, which will without a doubt have a detrimental impact to our way of life. It may not be Armageddon, and it may not be a cataclysmic event that threatens to end the world as we know it, but it should be a wake-up call for all of us. We have already experienced a very small dose of what it's like to not be able to get basic items that we may take for granted. Fuel, toilet paper, baby formula, disinfectants, and many other products and raw materials that we don't see that are important to manufacturing other products. The lifestyle that we've created for ourselves and grown so dependent on is constantly threatened in ways that are not always immediately visible to us. And so we must ask ourselves, how prepared are we to live without it? How prepared are we to go back to the land if we absolutely had no choice? There will always be crisis, and while we cannot directly influence how it will be packaged and presented to us by the players, we must make an effort to be better prepared for any situation. Endure and survive, adapt and thrive. That is our message, and our goal is to create balance between the intellectual and technological advancements that we enjoy and the innate survival and subsistence skills that we need and must have. We do this through training and mentorship, actively reconnecting with the land and advancing the skills of our ancestors. I'm Ken Darville, and this is Zodiac.